Hello and welcome to domytriesthis. I hope you brought your cuppa. As explained previously, this look and this coffee mug should look familiar, so we're just going to move right on. We're using the same tea as we did in our last video, which is the Wild Leaf Smart, which I've already determined that I really like even cold or hot. And I can tell that this one has hit the end of its steep time. It's not getting any stronger as we go along. You'll see it again. One more. So this is the second in my palette collection series. It's running after DragonCon. And today we're discussing the medium-ish palettes. So let's go ahead and get started. So my first two palettes are both from Juvia's place. I have the Saharan 2 and the Zulu. The Zulu is the newest, but let's start with our Saharan. This one, I saw the shinies. This was before I started paying attention to what colors I really like in a palette and whether or not I like the rest of the palette. Not saying that these are bad colors, but if you'll note, there's quite a few neutrally colors in here. I have a ton of neutrals. So had I been thinking about those things back when I bought this palette, I probably would have bought the Decay palette instead. But you know what? This is still a beautiful palette. This is almost all shimmers. The three mattes are these three right here. My only complaint is pretty much that the red just doesn't show up as a red. And honestly, this brighter light color, it's showing up red there, it seems more of a highlighter color to me. As you can see, they're pretty pigmented. The shimmers are shimming beautifully, as Too Much Mouth says, shimming. This, when I actually pack it on with a brush, it looks more of a pinky tone than it does right here in the swatches, and it doesn't show up nearly as dark on my eyes. But that said, they're beautiful colors. I don't totally regret buying it. I do use it. I do enjoy it. Had I been paying attention, I would have realized, you know, hey, you may want to go with something that's a bit less neutral. But this was my first, this is one of the brands that I wanted to try this year, and this was my first palette from that brand, and my experiences with the pigmentation and the colors and stuff is what encouraged me to buy the Zulu palette. I actually do want to get maybe one or two more of their palettes. I've been thinking about the Magic palette, and I've been thinking about the Decay palette. I've been wanting to try those other palettes one day, maybe, because it is a very good brand. This is the brighter palette that I used recently for this look. This one has a good mix. That's primarily mattes. We've only got really 3 shimmers in it. I love this rosy gold color. This purple is the reason I bought it. It doesn't show up on my skin, this color. This blue is beautiful, and this yellow actually shows up on my skin. I think I've mentioned in my previous one in this that yellows are actually one of the testers for me for colorful palettes. But I like having them actually show up on my skin, which is nice. The colors are beautiful. The pigmentation is beautiful. Because of the colors, because I'm missing a dark blue and a couple of other things that I tend to use with these kind of looks, this palette, despite the number of colors, tends to be more of a support palette for me. But overall, I'm really, really enjoying it. Highly recommend the Juvia's Places palettes. They're beautiful. Now, I mentioned in my last video that these guys would come again, and they are, and that's the Profusion Mixed Metals Peach. I got this in PR. It's only got 9 colors in it, but because of the packaging, I'm counting it as a medium palette. The packaging is beautiful. It includes a really nice mirror. The colors are neutral, but they're gorgeous neutrals, and my favorite colors are, I have to look at the names, Certain and Bordeaux, and I love these reds, and this peachy tone. They're very, very pretty, and they show up beautifully on my skin. Well, that one didn't. This is the peach, that peach I took from the top. I think part of the problem is a skin tone problem. It's one of the few that doesn't perform very well for me in here. The next one next to it is Wannabe. As you can see, that one does show up. It's a beautiful neutrally color. I enjoy these. Like I noted on the actual video where I talk about the PR package I received, and I will link that down below. I really enjoyed this palette. It has a light scent to it. It's not very strong. I have used some of these, one of these colors, this brown, I've used for eyeliner more than once. Overall, it's a beautiful palette, and I do intend to keep it, and I really do like it. And between this and the larger book that I bought, I really do want to get more from Profusion. So the next three are from Urban Decay, and Urban Decay for a long time was like, yeah, they're expensive, but I'm going to put everything that they have on my wish list because I want it all. And then the L'Oreal influence started showing up, and a lot of their palettes didn't work for me. I got the other glitter one that they have, the pressed glitters that you need glitter glue to make work. That didn't, I hated that palette. And that, I think, was more the formula than anything. But I've run into some other palettes of theirs. Bless you, whoever that was. I've run into some other palettes of theirs that haven't performed as well. So now I'm a little bit more careful and make sure that I really want a palette from them that is released. I'm starting to get on, I think it's the Born to Run palette train. I'm starting to think about that, but I haven't picked it up yet. I don't know if I will. Again, neutral colors. But let's get into these palettes. And speaking of several basically neutral colors, I have the Naked Heat. This is my first Naked palette. I love this. I have heard that this is one of the better Naked palettes. I'm going to take that little brush out of there that they have. This palette is the reason why I didn't keep the palette we got from Boxy Charm a month or two ago, or last month. It was last month, because basically all those colors that were in that palette are in this one. This is more of a fall palette for me, I guess. I haven't been using it much lately, but the colors are gorgeous. There is some fallout, there is some kickback, but it is not horrible. And for neutrals, they are beautiful. I mean, that's just gorgeous pigmentation. It's beautiful. I tend to mix this with a palette that I don't see right now. Give me a minute. So I tend to mix it with my Smashbox Cover Shot Ablaze. The colors do complement, especially like this red here and this orange here. They do complement that particular palette. As you can see, the colors again are beautiful. You're going to see this one again. But I really had wished that this had more of a red tone and something that was a little brighter. I mean, they've got the oranges here, but I wish they had something a little brighter. Not necessarily yellow, but just a little bit brighter, that's all. But other than that, I love this palette, and I actually started putting all the other Nakeds in, and I ended up buying the Smoky when it went on sale, and I actually ended up giving the Smoky to someone else. Too many dark browns. I did find a shade in there that I love, and then I took the palette into Sephora, and we went through the Urban Decay singles and found the closest single to the one shade in that palette that I really loved. But I ended up giving that one up. The pigmentation wasn't as good as it was in the heat, and my understanding is a lot of people had that issue, was the pigmentation wasn't as good as it is in the heat. And it was just a bunch of dark browns, and I ended up not using it very often other than the one shade. So I gave that one to a friend. I was gonna buy the Naked 3, which I believe is more on the pinks. I ended up getting a palette in Yes Oh Yes that made it so that I went, oh, well, I probably wouldn't use that one that much, and it saved me some money. The Naked One, again, too many browns. I'm going to take a look at the Naked Two and see if I'm interested in it, but probably not. I might get one of the Naked Basics, but we'll see. But this one I really, really enjoy. So the next two palettes are palettes that I don't use very frequently either. A lot of that has to do with them being very bright or very shimmery colors or just a color thing. Also, because I have so many palettes, they tend to get buried in the back and they get missed. It's not a deliberate thing, honest. It's just I don't have any way to display everything. So we're going to go first with the Urban Decay After Dark, another palette that I really enjoy in terms of coloring. As I get rid of the brush and it goes flying away. I like this one for the shimmers. I like the fact that it has lights and darks. I'm not sure if this one's even available anymore. I don't think it is, unfortunately. The light lemon shows up beautifully. We have this beautiful, it's called Supersonic. That's kind of a beautiful orangey color. We have this gorgeous purple here, the green, this blue. These are colors that I use from this palette frequently when I use this palette, and I do enjoy it a lot. The pigmentation tends to be very good. I've had no problems with it. It has lots of beautiful shimmer in it. I love this palette. I really do need to use this more. But, you know, a lot of these colors I have elsewhere too. I mean, I bought a whole bunch of ColourPops, and I think one of my ColourPops looks like that one. So overall, the colors are beautiful. This is, again, I think we were just starting to see some of the L'Oreal influence when this one came out. Unfortunately, it didn't show up in this one. So beautiful pigmentation. One that I need to use more frequently. And since I'm doing a Bright Ladies series for women who are a little older and are scared of bright colors, I probably should use this next palette at some point. And that's the Urban Decay Electric palette. I got this purely for the bright colors. Bright, neon bright. But the colors are gorgeous. And again, there is really decent pigmentation. And they at least have some colors in here that can work together. They have like the 3 greens, they've got the 2 purples and the pink, they've got the orange and the pink, so they've got 2 blues. I think the only one that I may end up having any issue with is possibly this silver. Because I have found that on me that silvers end up turning very gray for some reason. There's those. Again, great pigmentation. It's beautiful. It's bright colors. Right up my alley. I rarely use any of these brushes that come with these sets, but this was all basically old Urban Decay pigmentation and color, and before we really started to see a lot of the L'Oreal kind of influence, kind of I don't know, washing out some of the pigmentation. But if you can find it somewhere, I don't think you can. I think it was another limited edition that is now off market. But if you can find it somewhere, I do recommend it. I know it's bright colors, and a lot of women are nervous of bright colors, but you know, you can use bright colors for accents. You don't have to use the entire palette. So I highly recommend this one if you can get your hands on it. It's a beautiful, beautiful palette that, again, I need to use more of. This one, my husband got for me from Hot Topic, and that's the Harley Quinn and the Skull Bags 9 Shadow Palette. This is an okay palette. This one is more something to keep as a, you know, a fan kind of thing. I love the artwork on the inside. The colors are all mattes pretty much, and I noticed that they're a little more difficult to work with in terms of pigmentation. A couple of the colors I really like. There's a lot of neutrals in here again. This is one of those cases where what you're seeing on my hand is pretty much Oops. This is one of those cases where what you're seeing on my hand is pretty much what you get on the eye. If you see that a couple of these have just sort of patchy, I have to really build them up to get them to work. But I'm keeping it, and I do use it upon occasion. I mean, it was a birthday gift or a Valentine's gift. It was a gift from my husband, my lovely husband. So I do appreciate it. It gives me a lot more neutrals to work with, so that's nice. There's a couple of bright colors that actually, they don't come up that bright when you use them. And again, you're looking at a great deal of patchiness. So yeah, that's disappointing. But beyond that, it's a decent palette, and I do use the browns upon occasion when I actually need a brown, which isn't very often. So the next palette is another palette from my to try list from this year, and that is the Carroty Unicorn Dreams palette. This is also a disappointment. It was between this one and another palette that they had, and the other palette might have been better for me to get, but this one was on sale. And I was able to actually use a couple of points I had earned through Pinecone to get basically a prepaid card, and I used that prepaid card to get gift cards. But anyway, the end result was I paid $2.50 for this, and I'm glad that I only paid $2.50 for this. The colors, I recall correctly, we'll see in a minute, the colors do actually swatch well, but I've had issues with them showing up on my eyes. Now, some of that may be because they are more pastel-y than I realized they would be, and pastels don't do very well on my eyes. So overall, I was disappointed, but I do like the fact that they have a nice mix of shimmer and mattes in each color category. I don't have a bunch of colors where you've got like, oh, here's a bunch of browns and a blue. Here's a bunch of purples and a single gold. I appreciate the fact that they put in other colors along the color range for each of these. So I've got more than one purple. I've got blue and a purpley blue, so that they work together. I've got more than one green. I've got more than one rosy red. So I do appreciate that. I just have been very disappointed in the actual pigmentation of it. Like I said, for me, it actually swatches better than how it looks on my eyes. I actually have to do some packing on my eyes to get it to really show up. But as I've noted before, like I just said, that could be just a skin tone problem. As you can see, these two aren't really showing up very well. And I've had issues with all three of these colors, which makes me sad because I really did want to like the Carroty. My experience with this particular palette makes me unlikely to purchase anything from Carroty again, unless, you know, I can get it for $2.50, and yeah, it's heavily discounted. Four more, and these four all have their, well, we'll start with the one that has, the two that have the biggest issues, I think. This is a Yes Oh Yes. This is the one that I got that actually is pretty close to a dupe, I believe, for the Naked 3. And that's the Bellapierre 12 palette, Go Natural palette, eyeshadow palette. It has the light pinky tones. I don't use any of the brushes. It has a nice light pinky tones. The pigmentation is okay. I do like some of the colors, but again, we have an issue with skin tone not quite working out. Like I said, the pigmentation is okay, and you're going to see some of these color issues here. It's okay. It's an okay palette. I am going to hang on to it. I'm continuing to hang on to it because it is a neutral palette that goes into the pinks, and it has, honestly, these two colors here are just gorgeous when I can get them built up the correct way. Most of the rest, they don't really show up all that well on me. They're great for me to add depth sometimes, or I can brush one over the center of my eye to give it some lightness, but it's not one of my favorite palettes. I don't reach for it very often. I'm just going to keep it because it's neutrals, and every once in a while you need some real neutrals. And I like the pinks. I really do like the pinks and like these colors. they just don't show up on me. I really wish it had better pigmentation. The next palette was also a controversial palette for a lot of people, and that was the Boxy Charm and Pure collab. A lot of people had issues with this palette. They had a lot of problems. My only problem with this palette really is the fact that we've got 4 basically shades of orange, peach. And I honestly think that they could have, this was supposed to be their by the sea or sea vacation or something. It had to do with the sea that month. And honestly, if this was going to be by the sea, we needed a darker blue, we needed a couple of greens, and you could have taken a couple of these out and put those colors in, because actually technically I guess we have 5 that are on the peachy side. I do appreciate that we only got the 2 browns and we have the pretty reds and the turquoises in there, but it's just way too many peaches. And I understand why they did it, but really we needed another blue and some greens, and they really should have done another row or something. But anyway, a lot of people complained about the pigmentation, that they couldn't work up looks, and I can understand not working up looks when you've got that many peaches in there. But I never had any issues with it. The glittery ones do tend to be a bit on the chunkier side, do tend to be a bit more problematic. But I can get these colors to show up and to work, and I don't have any issues with them. I use them on my eyes and they're fine. Again, it's another palette I'm not reaching for a lot right now. I've got, bye. I've got other palettes that have similar color schemes that are, I say similar, they're not exactly the same, so I will be keeping the palette. But I've got other palettes with similar color schemes that I can use. I do use this upon occasion. The black is a nice, it is a shimmery, glittery kind of black. It gives, when I use it for eyelining, it gives my eyelining a bit of a shimmer, and it's a beautiful black, and it does show up that way on my eyes, whether I use it that way or for an eyeliner. So I know a lot of people had issues with it. I didn't. I enjoy it, and I'm keeping that one. Okay, so I'm going to do the next problematic palette that came out of Yes Oh Yes. And it's problematic for a couple of reasons. This came out when Yes Oh Yes was having some PR issues. PR issues of their own making. And the palette itself sold for a certain amount, and then it came out in the box, and people noticed on the Crown website that it was cut down to like $9 or $5 or something really low, and started getting really upset because Yes Oh Yes was reporting the palette at the original price, which I believe was like $40. I put it down at the original price because when you find a palette at, say, a TJ Maxx, or when it goes on sale on the manufacturer site or something like that, that is not the original value of the palette. That is the palette going on sale, probably being discontinued and taken out of stock. That is not the original value of the palette. So that never upset me. Then a lot of people said it looked cheap. And that's the, this one has a funky name. It says it's a Pro Travel face palette. I can't remember the name of it now. It had another name. No, it's the Nova. It's there, and there were 2 in the series. So there's another one. There's a sister palette to this one. But I don't have a problem with the packaging, but people got people had issues with the way these stickers were put on, and yeah, my only issue with it is the lip glosses. No. And these colors, the blushes and stuff here weren't that good. But I didn't have any trouble with pigmentation. I didn't have any trouble with any of the other issues that people wanted to complain about on this palette. And you can see that I've actually used those quite frequently. I haven't been using it recently, I will admit. And I will also admit that the pigmentation is not as good as, you know, an Urban Decay palette. But I can get these colors to come up on my face, and I think it was a pretty decent palette. I had other issues with Yes Oh Yes, and I eventually ended up unsubscribing and taking their link off. But this is okay. This is something that is workable. You can pack the color on and these colors will show up better. These colors do show up better in when you're using primer. So it may have been a problematic palette, but I'm keeping it. I enjoy it. I like it. I use it occasionally. Like I said, I have a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm using now. So a lot of these older palettes are actually, I say older, and this is probably what, 3 or 4 months old maybe. A lot of these palettes are starting to get kind of forgotten, and I'm going to have to start doing the 1 palette, 1 month look or something. I'm going to have to start focusing on bringing some of my older palettes out at some point. All right, so my final palette is the Chi Chi OMFG eyeshadow palette. I won this from V at V's Views in one of her giveaways, which I really appreciated. This one came out in, oh my goodness, I can't remember. It came out in another subscription box, and V is a little afraid of bright colors, so it's easy to see why she gave it away. And it was the one palette that made me go, oh, I was subscribed to that box once. Why did I stop? I know why I stopped. I know why I wouldn't go back. But I love these colors. The pigmentation, it's okay. It's not the best, but it's not horrible. And some of them do come up better than others. So there you go. They're not bad. They do have a lot of fallout. If you look, you can see there's quite a bit of shadow that if you were putting it on your face would fall out on your cheeks when you're putting it on. And there are colors that are kind of patchier than others. But overall, it's another okay palette. Bright colors, up my alley. I was using it for a while. I have other shadows. I mean, this isn't going to beat this. So, yeah. I do use other palettes. I do intend to keep this. I don't think any of my kids would be interested in this. Yeah. So I intend to keep it for now. It might eventually go into Project Beauty Share, but it won't do it anytime soon. I enjoy the bright colors. I enjoy using it to enhance other palettes and other looks. I hope you like what you've seen, and if you're new here and haven't, I hope you will subscribe. And if you do subscribe, please hit that notification bell so that you know when I upload. And if you don't subscribe, well, I will be sad. I do hope we will see you again. And when we do see you again, don't forget to bring your cup of tea.